Vampires. The word itself conjures images of pale skin, sharp fangs, and an insatiable thirst for blood. Over centuries, these creatures of the night have become the stuff of legend, feared and revered in equal measure. But what if I told you that the origin of these tales, these myths, began with a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding about me. It was the year 1431, in a small village nestled deep within the Carpathian Mountains. The air was cold, crisp, and the nights were long. I had lived among the villagers for years, a recluse by nature, but always there when help was needed. I was known as a healer, someone who could mend wounds and ease pain when sickness came. But over time, people began to notice certain peculiarities about me. I was different. I admit it. My skin was paler than most, a side effect of my natural aversion to sunlight. You see, the sun's rays would burn my skin far quicker than others, leaving painful blisters. So, I chose to walk at night, under the cover of darkness, when the moonlight was kind to my complexion. It was just one of the many ways I adapted to survive. But to the villagers, it seemed unnatural. I studied herbs, roots, and the art of healing. My mother had taught me these things before she passed away. My remedies were effective, but the ingredients were sometimes unusual, and the preparation methods could be peculiar. One night, I was seen collecting wolfsbane and nightshade by moonlight. To those who didn't understand, it must have seemed like I was practicing dark magic. But what really set tongues wagging was my diet. I had always had an iron deficiency, one that could only be managed by a particular method. I drank animal blood. Fresh, preferably from the butcher's scraps. To me, it was a necessary part of my health regimen. To others, it was a horrifying secret that they stumbled upon one evening. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. People said I was drinking blood for power, to steal their vitality. They began to call me stragoi, an ancient word for the undead. Fear has a way of twisting perceptions, of turning misunderstandings into monstrosities. And soon, I was the subject of fearful glances, hushed conversations, and the occasional angry outburst. One evening, a young girl fell gravely ill. The village healer was away, and I was the only one with the knowledge to help. Desperate, her mother came to me, begging for aid. I did what I could, mixing a potion to lower the fever, placing cool rags on her forehead, whispering comforting words. But by morning, she had passed away. The villagers' grief quickly turned to anger. They accused me of bewitching the child, of feeding on her life force. They said they had seen me, lurking in the shadows outside her home, that I had cast a spell to make her death seem like illness. No amount of reason or truth could sway their belief. In their eyes, I was a monster. They came for me. I still remember the sound of their footsteps, the angry shouts, the flames casting long shadows on the walls. They dragged me from my home, accusing me of witchcraft, of being a creature of the night who preyed on the living. I pleaded, tried to explain, but their fear drowned out my words. They drove me to the edge of the forest, threatening to burn me if I ever returned. So, I disappeared into the mountains, leaving the village and its fears behind. But I wasn't alone. The stories spread, carried by travelers and merchants. They spoke of the pale man who drank blood, who walked by night and lived alone in the wilderness. They embellished the tales, adding fangs and the ability to transform into a bat. The myth of the vampire was born. Over time, the myths grew, fueled by fear of the unknown, by disease and death, by humanity's need to explain what they couldn't understand. The vampire became a symbol of all that was feared and reviled. An immortal predator lurking in the dark, waiting to drain the life from the unsuspecting. And through it all, I watched from the shadows, living a solitary existence, moving from place to place, forever hiding who I was. Even now, centuries later, the myth persists. Stories and legends passed down through generations, retold in books and films. People still think of vampires as creatures of evil, monsters to be hunted and destroyed. But the truth is far less sinister. I am not a demon or a creature of the night. I am just a person, trying to survive in a world that doesn't understand me. I have adapted, just as I did all those centuries ago. I live in the city now, surrounded by people who have no idea who I am. I have learned to manage my condition without alarming those around me. I work, I live, I watch as the world changes, always just out of reach, always on the edge of society. But still, the legends follow me. Still, the name vampire lingers like a shadow. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if things had been different. If the villagers had understood, if they hadn't been so quick to fear. Would I have lived a normal life? Grown old, surrounded by family and friends? Or was I always destined to be an outcast, a solitary figure in the darkness? These are questions I may never have the answers to. People often ask why I don't try to clear my name, to set the record straight about the myths and legends. But how can I explain centuries of misunderstanding, of fear and hatred? How can I convince the world that the creature they've come to fear is just a man, trying to live his life? Perhaps, in time, the truth will come to light. Or perhaps, it is better this way. Better to remain a figure of legend, a cautionary tale, than to risk becoming the target of a new kind of fear. I share my story now, not to seek sympathy or understanding, but to remind you that legends are often born from truth. And that truth, like light, can be distorted by the lens of fear. Remember that the next time you hear tales of creatures in the night, the next time you look into the darkness and feel the chill of fear, sometimes the monsters we fear are just people hiding, waiting, hoping for a world that will see them for who they truly are. The only thing I can't explain, why am I 600 years old?